Welcome to the age of high adventure. I'm Jim Zub, a Canadian comic book writer and the flagship writer of Conan the Barbarian, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you here to this screening tonight. The 1982 release of Conan the Barbarian changed my life. Now, I wasn't old enough to see it in the theaters. It is an R-rated movie, but when I finally saw it on home video, it was everything that I wanted. My older brother and I used to just binge out playing Dungeons and Dragons all the time. We were obsessed with sword and sorcery and fantasy storytelling. And the adventures that we created together, we just didn't see that same kind of thing, whether that was in cartoons or in movies. Fantasy films always seemed really kind of hokey. They seemed corny. They just didn't have the kind of visceral intensity that we were getting in our favorite books, in our favorite games, or on the comic book page. But then when I finally saw Conan the Barbarian, I realized you could have that kind of vision, that you could have the kind of dark and amazing epic storytelling in a fantasy film, that the actors could be taking it seriously, that the soundtrack could be as epic as you hope it could be, and that these adventures were worthy of my imagination. And in so many ways, that led me down a path that has brought me to where I am now, where I've written dozens and dozens of fantasy stories in comic books, and now getting to work on Conan the Barbarian. It's kind of mind-bending to me because as a kid, I just wanted to meet the people that worked on Conan. I never, ever thought that I would be one of the people who get to make it happen and bring those stories forward. If you're not aware, Conan is the original sword and sorcery hero, really the father of the entire genre. The original 21 short stories that were done for Weird Tales magazines are pulp tales. They were released in the 1930s. Conan is even older than Superman by 6 years, and the character became a bedrock of an entire new genre of kind of fantasy storytelling. Marvel's Conan comic book series in the 1970s was one of the biggest books of the era. That, alongside Spider-Man and Star Wars, really helped keep Marvel afloat during a tough period. And the vision of the character in those comic books was influenced by the incredible cover artwork of Frank Frazetta. Reprints of the Conan the Barbarian stories that were released in the 1960s with Frank Frazetta cover artwork sold millions of copies and really helped to establish the look and feel of the character as we know him in the modern era. That vision became the bedrock of visuals for the character that Marvel Comics used in their run in the 1970s. And those comics were picked up by director John Milius when he was figuring out his vision for doing the movie. So in very critical ways, without those Marvel comics, there would be no movie. And without that movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger may never have become the superstar actor that he is today. This film helped transition him from being an award-winning bodybuilder to becoming an action superstar. You also have extremely well-established actors like James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow elevating the scenes that they're in and bringing a level of gravitas to the film that I think surprises a lot of viewers if they've never seen it before. Speaking of which, if you have not seen this film before, I know it's going to leave an indelible mark on you. The pulse-pounding music, the scope and feel of the epic action, this is sword and sorcery movie making at its finest. And I hope that it is just as exciting for you as it was for me almost 40 years ago when I first saw it. John Milius doesn't directly adapt the original Robert E. Howard short stories. He takes bits and pieces from all kinds of the Robert E. Howard canon. There's a little bit of A Witch Shall Be Born. There's pieces of Queen of the Black Coast, Red Nails, and Tower the Elephant, all kind of fused together into one crazy, awesome sword and sorcery adventure. But even if you've never read those original short stories or had a subscription to the comics or played any of the Conan video games, Don't worry. You don't need to know any of that in order to enjoy the film you're about to watch. All you need to know in order to dive into Conan in any medium is this. Conan exists in the Hyborian Age, a dangerous and wondrous place filled with adventure. There is treasure and danger around every corner, and everywhere he travels, something incredibly awesome is going to happen. All you need to do now is sit back in your chair, relax, take hold of your finest weapon, and prepare to answer the riddle of steel.